Yo, yo, yo. Welcome to lecture 4 of the M20 EDU private mentorship series. The title of this lecture is Stress Management and Well-Being. So let's jump straight into it as usual. So as always, we start with the lecture structure. So the first thing we're going to talk about is what is mindfulness. Then we're going to talk about how acceptance leads to action. Then we're going to talk about why do we do mindfulness. I'm going to talk about my personal practices that I would use, and then I would give you some tips on how you could start integrating these mindfulness practices into your daily life. So what is mindfulness? So mindfulness essentially involves focusing one's attention on the present moment without judgment. So the key factor here is without judgment. So all of the meditation practices that I would engage in is designed to basically train your attention to the present moment. So why is this important? So when you meditate and you sit there for 10 to 15 minutes, your mind starts going and going and going. You start thinking about the assignment you have due tomorrow. You start thinking about a conversation you had the previous day. You just start thinking about a bunch of things. What happens during that first couple minutes of meditation is that you are attached to every thought that passes by. And that's okay, that's fine. We human beings, that's how our brains are all trained to essentially just associate things together. But after consistent meditation, that monkey mind or that voice in your head that continuously labels and attaches different emotions and perspectives to events in our life, that voice starts to quiet down slightly. So the chattering begins to go down, and you essentially start getting bored of just judging things. You start realizing, wow, when I sit down here for 15 to 20 minutes, all I'm doing is thinking about the past or thinking about the future or labeling something as good or bad or being disappointed about things that happened in the past or being anxious about things that might happen in the future. And these thoughts aren't attached in the present moment. And you are basically allocating a significant amount of energy not to the thing that's in front of you, not to the present moment, but to a thought or to a scenario that doesn't exist. So your entire focus is on things that don't exist. The future nor the past exists. So your mental energy is now caught up into something that doesn't actually bring you any value. When you think about the future and you put too much emphasis and you become anxious about the future, it doesn't help you in the present moment. If you are scared or upset or disappointed because of things from your past, it doesn't help you in this present moment to feel those emotions and to label either the past or the future as good, bad, indifferent, whatever it is. So our attention is not focused on the present moment when our mind is in that very, very chaotic and judgmental state. So the aim of mindfulness is to develop a state of calm, non-reactive, and compassionate awareness. So as I mentioned, the monkey mind begins to quiet down. And what happens is that, similar to the way in which you would sit down and look at the clouds just go by, that's how you start looking at your thoughts. You start realizing that one, you are not your thoughts, and that two, not every thought that comes to your mind deserves energy being given to it. So if you're sitting down and you get this thought that you should go play video games, not because you have that thought means that you have to play video games. You could simply disregard that thought. Simply just observe that thought and objectively say, this thought doesn't serve me. This thought doesn't benefit me in any way. If you have exams coming up and your mind starts going, what if this topic that I'm not good at comes on the exam? That thought doesn't benefit you in any way. That thought doesn't help you in any way. It adds anxiety, it adds a level of fear to your life, and it takes you away from the present moment. The best thing that you could do in this present moment, if you are anxious or scared about, let's say, an exam, the best thing to do right now is to study for that exam. The best thing to do right now is to put all of your energies towards getting better at that topic that you are currently weak in. It helps you to focus on the present moment and operate in a very objective, non-reactive, calm way, which, based on my experience, is the best way in which to go about this entire Cape journey. So as I mentioned just now, you get to a state of acceptance and non-judgment, which leads to action in the present moment. And as we've previously mentioned in the past lectures, action, time management, putting in the work, operating in monk mode at a high efficiency is most important. That is the variable of input that increases our likelihood of success. So this is a chart here. I don't know how many of you are interested in things like this, interested in things of like frequencies, interested in things like your level of consciousness and how the mind works and how the energy basically functions. But this is a chart that I utilized during CAPE, and it comes from a book called Power versus Force. I think it's Stephen Hawkins, I might be wrong, but the name of the book is Power versus Force. And we can see right here on the chart that acceptance is pretty high up in terms of frequency. And we have frequencies like fear. So when you are afraid of writing the exam, you are essentially lowering your frequency. You're no longer operating at a higher frequency. You're no longer operating in flow. That's lower in frequency than acceptance. Just to give another example to iterate acceptance a bit better, let's say there's a situation whereby you realize that the date for your exam is closer than you expected it to be. So let's say you assume that your exam was on the 10th, but it happened to be on the 5th. When you get this news, you could either respond to the news in a couple ways. One way you could respond to the news is, oh my gosh, my exam is 5 days earlier than I thought it would have been. Oh my gosh. You could respond in that way. However, that response isn't acceptance. That response is, I haven't accepted the reality that my exam is 5 days earlier. So now I'm going to have an emotional response. If you were in the second bucket of a response, which is, my exam is 5 days earlier, and that's it, my exam is 5 days earlier, and I now have to study harder or adjust my schedule, it immediately moves you to a state of action because you have accepted the reality of the situation. This applies to other things in life. You're driving somewhere and you got a flat tire. It isn't, oh my gosh, I got a flat tire. It's, I just got a flat tire. Now what do? Do I change the tire? Do I call someone to help me? What do I do? So panicking, having these feelings of fear, having these emotions of pride, anger, desire, grief, these are just very low frequency thoughts. These are just low frequency emotions. And what meditation essentially does is it pulls us out of those low frequency emotions. And I personally would say that it definitely brings you to a place of acceptance. I can't give advice on how to move up to reason and love and joy and peace and enlightenment, obviously. I'm not able to give advice on that. But what I would say is through consistent meditative practices, you do get to a state of acceptance, which leads to a state of action. Because everything just is, and you act accordingly. It isn't, this is good, this is bad, it just is. And that leads to a state of action. It leads to a state of humility. When it comes to writing an exam, you accept that I may not know everything, but I have done my best. It also gets rid of the fear and the anxiety, because you just accept the fact that I may not know everything on this exam, so maybe I should study more. Hopefully that explanation made sense. So why do we do mindfulness outside of the previous things that I called? So the three things that I called in the past were, well, not the three things, all of the previous points that I made in the past towards mindfulness and the benefits are essentially directly linked to doing well in exams and studying well and studying hard. But these examples are basically things outside of school. It helps with stress reduction. This is scientifically proven that meditation helps with stress reduction over time. We can basically go through these points pretty quickly. Improved mental health, which stems from stress reduction, a less chaotic mind. Personally, once I meditate, I am more likely to exercise that day. I am more likely to read that day because I'm able to filter out thoughts. So if I get a thought that, hey, you should play video games, I'm able to sit down and look at that thought and say, you know what? Maybe playing video games isn't the best thing. Then the thought comes of maybe I should read a book. And then it improves your mental health because all other aspects of your life also improves. Enhanced focus and concentration. So I have experienced this a lot through breath awareness meditation, which is what I would talk about in the later slides. But essentially, every time you meditate using breath awareness, you essentially force yourself to refocus on your breath. So you focus on the breath and your mind wanders to something else. Your mind wanders to the new TV show, the new episode of Top Boy that's supposed to come out next week. So as soon as your mind goes there, you're able to recognize it and bring yourself back to the present moment, to your breath. You bring your focus back to your breath. And that focus on concentration leaks out into studies. You're studying, you're reading, something happens that could distract you, your mind wanders off, you consistently have trained your brain to come back to this is what we're focusing on right now. We're not focusing on this. So in the morning for 20 minutes, you train yourself. We're not focusing on the noise outside. We're focusing on our breath right now. The same thing. We're not focusing on my phone. We're not focusing on the TV that's playing downstairs. We're focusing on the work right now. So mindfulness leaks that practice and that focus and concentration into all aspects of your life. I'm going to talk about emotional regulation. It helps with that. What I would say is that after a prolonged period of time, you are able to regulate your emotional responses very well, better than most people who don't meditate. The main reason being is because a lot of our emotional states simply come from thoughts. A lot of our emotional states are simply our inability to correctly judge thoughts, our inability to simply let go of certain thought patterns. So let's say, for example, somebody steals your lunch. If you are still angry about someone stealing your food after school, then your anger purely stems from your inability to let go of that pervasive thought of someone stole my lunch today, someone stole my lunch today, someone stole my lunch today. Because 2 weeks from now, 2 weeks from that day when your lunch was stolen, when you no longer have the thought that someone stole your lunch, you would no longer be angry about the situation. So it isn't necessarily the situation that's angering you. What's essentially angering you is the consistent thought and your subsequent labeling of that thought. Your response to that thought that someone stole your lunch. So let me go deeper into that example. Same situation, somebody steals your lunch. After school, when that thought of someone stole my lunch today comes in, instead of you labeling it as a negative, oh no, someone stole my lunch, that's bad, I didn't have lunch today, blah, 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 you could label the thought of, if someone was willing to steal my lunch, then one, they probably need it more than me. So I feel good about the fact that someone was able to eat lunch today. Someone who really needed lunch, they were able to eat lunch today because of me. You could also label that thought and say, you know, yes, someone stole my lunch, but this is probably a small catalyst for me to begin fasting, or for me to begin monk mode, or for me to just train my discipline to be better, because yes, I'm hungry, but I'm not eating, so it helps with my discipline, it helps with other aspects of my life. So the same situation occurred, same exact lunch was stolen, but your labeling of the thought that someone stole your lunch is the variable that determines your emotional state. That's why mindfulness helps with emotional regulation. So now we're going to talk about my personal practices. I have 3 personal practices that I used during CAPE to help me with stress management, focus, and operating from a calm, non-reactive state. The first practice is breath awareness. You basically focus on your breath. You focus on the sensation of your breath, and that's it. When your mind wanders, you just bring your attention back to the present moment. Sit up with your back straight, set a timer, focus on the breath. Whenever your mind deviates, focus on the breath. It's that simple. We're going to talk about body scan. You basically direct your attention to different parts of your body without judgment. So it's very similar to the breath awareness, except that you're focusing on a different part of your body instead of the breath. So you could go on YouTube and find a body scan meditation, guided meditation, which would help you do that. I would interchange between body scan and breath awareness pretty often because it brings you to the present moment. It brings you to a state where your mind isn't wandering everywhere. It brings you to a state where you are in this moment because you are aware of the sensation of your feet touching the ground. You could do this right now while listening to this lecture. Whether you're sitting down, you're standing up, you do have some form of sensory input happening right now. You could feel your feet touch the ground. If you're standing up or you have earphones in, you could feel the plastic of the earphone touching your ears. You just make yourself aware of these sensations and it just brings you to the present moment. Might sound funny, might sound weird, but honestly, try it for like 10 to 15 minutes every day where you just purely focused on whatever physical sensory input you have at the time. Focus purely on that. Don't judge it. Don't label it as good or bad. You are simply fully present in your body. We're going to talk about observing thoughts, which I don't do this as much anymore. Breath awareness and body scan is probably the main two ones I would utilize. But essentially, you just sit down and observe your thoughts. If I am doing it, I would probably do it for like 45 minutes. So that's why I don't do it as much. It requires less effort but more time because all you have to do is just sit back and just let your thoughts run. With the breath awareness and the body scan, you have to apply mental energy towards focusing on your breath or focusing on whatever bodily sensation you have. Then we also have the Wim Hof breathing method. I would do this sometimes before an exam. I highly recommend you go to YouTube and do some Wim Hof breathing, even if it's just once, and just feel the difference in your body. I'm not going to go too in-depth into that one. If you're really interested in stress management and controlling your biochemistry to benefit you, I highly recommend the Wim Hof breathing method. Just go on YouTube, type it in, and do your own research, and you'll feel a change in your body. So how do we start implementing these mindfulness practices? So as usual, we start small, keep it simple, then we stack over time. So start with short sessions, gradually increase, create a feedback loop. So whenever you're done meditating, give yourself a reward in some way. I don't know how, but just find a way to reward yourself after every meditation session so that it becomes a habit. The real value and the real benefits of meditation come from consistent meditation over time. Find a quiet and comfortable space to practice. This is very important because it definitely would make it easier for you to maintain the habit. If you have one spot in your bedroom or one spot in the living room, one spot in your house where you would meditate every day, that would help a lot because you begin to train your brain to essentially get to that meditative, relaxed state whenever you are in that specific location. So definitely find a quiet, comfortable space. Doesn't have to be fancy. You don't need any mat, you don't need any incense, nothing. Just find a nice little spot where you can sit down, close your eyes, and just get 10 to 15 minutes of silence. I would say use a timer as well. Again, every single one of the lectures that I've done, I basically have mentioned getting a timer. I personally use an app called Insight Timer. Highly recommend it. Pretty nice app. Integrate mindfulness into your daily activities. Meditation doesn't only mean sit down, eyes closed, focus on the breath. Meditation could be body scan awareness. During the day, your eyes not closed, you're in a classroom, you're paying attention to the teacher. All you do is focus on you sitting down in the classroom, your elbows on the armrest, your back against the seat rest. You just focus. You're just totally present, totally aware of your body. So it's very easy to integrate mindfulness into your daily practices. But I still recommend just sitting down, eyes closed, 10 to 15 minutes. I personally have derived the most benefits from that form of practice. But it does help to integrate it into your daily activities. If you're not able to sit down and just close your eyes, or you're not ready to do that yet, it just feels very uncomfortable to sit down and close your eyes for that long, then you could simply integrate it into the daily activity. Last point, just start. Don't make it complicated. At the end of this video, as soon as this video ends, swipe up, set a timer for 10 minutes, just close your eyes, and just do nothing until the timer goes off. But just begin, just start. You'll start feeling the benefits of it, and then you would want to do it more. So that's why it's important to just start doing it. So I hope this lecture was insightful. Thank you for your time and energy. This is the last lecture video of the M20 EDU private mentorship. Thank you for your time, energy. I hope this was insightful. I hope this was beneficial. If you did derive any form of value, feel free to share it with anyone who you think would also benefit from that value. And I look forward to hearing from you again soon. I wish you the best, and thanks for your time and energy once again.